So the verdict is in. The results are final. Michael Sussman, the sussy man supposedly at the center of the John Durham probe into the Russiagate hoax, has been found not guilty. So a very sussy investigation led only to the prosecution, in a very sussy trial of a very sussy man, which has resulted in a sussy verdict. I'd try to express my shock and horror if I could, but frankly, I'm not shocked, and neither should any of you be. At least if you're regular listeners to this channel, you should be realistic enough to understand. Even though I've never talked about, I've never focused on for an entire video, John Durham and his supposed probe. I'm putting that in scare quotes. You should know enough without even looking into the history of John Durham, which, as you might have guessed, is quite sussy. He is not somebody who's going to have gotten to the truth of the matter and to have, prosecuted all of the wrongdoers and tried to really, sew up this Russiagate thing and get justice for all those Trump supporters who had their election victory in 2016 effectively stolen from them. Without saying anything about the 2020 election, but I just mean after Trump was elected in 2016, he was hamstrung by this idea that he was a Putin puppet. And we learned from Robbie Mook during the trial of the sussy man, Mr. Sussman, that yes, it was in fact old Hillary who invented the whole thing. It was all her idea. She put us all up to it. And so everything, the whole justice process hinged on this trial of Michael Sussman. This was how the Trumpers were going to have their revenge. As Jack Posobiec pointed out today, Hannity for all these years has been saying tick, 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 which sounded more like a time bomb, but I think he meant it like tick-tock, as in a clock. Time was ticking, the clock was ticking, and eventually we were going to get to some stage where there was this great epiphany, and everyone realizes, and there was all this resolution to the issue of Russiagate. I hate to break it to you folks, but Q was a Psyop. That was never coming. There were never any white hats. QAnon was not going to save us. There are no good people in the federal government. John Durham was the cover-up crew. That's what he's always done. That's what he did back with Whitey Bulger and the boys. All he has to do is pick a fall guy, try to lampoon, or maybe harpoon, that fall guy, make an example out of him, and then sweep the whole conspiracy under the rug. That's what he did with Whitey Bulger and the mob in Boston. And so that's what he did here with Michael Sussy Man. But in this case, he didn't even get a conviction. He threw everything. The Sussman was supposed to be the avatar of the entire Russiagate conspiracy, and he got acquitted. And so that puts a final nail in the coffin of people who doubted Russiagate. Okay? Russiagate, you can no longer hold that because, that's been litigated. Okay? There was, you can't get upset about the Russiagate conspiracy and all this crap. And I mean the conspiracy to promote the idea that there was some kind of Russian conspiracy. Okay? This is conspiracyception at this point. Because John Durham, that big tough guy who we were told for years, and who all these mainstream people in conservative media like Sean Hannity were talking about, oh my gosh, Durham, he's going to get him. So Durham supposedly tried his best. He made his best case. This was all he could muster was one count of lying to the FBI, which is a fake process crime anyway. It's not even a real crime. They charged Sussman, this lawyer who nobody's ever heard of from Perkins Coie, which is, for those of you who don't know, Perkins Coie is a known Democrat law firm. So I'll get into the facts of the case in a minute, but just the background of this, that nobody should have expected anything to come out of this. That what you should have expected was an acquittal. And this to be everything. And now this is an open and shut thing. Now they can close the case. They can close the case on this Russiagate stuff once and for all, and nobody can ever complain about it again. Sussman, this case, the Sussman case that was brought by Durham, was a straw man case. He knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. He charged him with something very light, lying to the FBI, which, in my opinion, shouldn't be a crime. But he did. It's a process crime. So he charged one guy with one pretty light crime, and he poured all the stakes, everything. He bet everything, the whole investigation, on this trial. And then he tried it in a very unfavorable jurisdiction, the District of Columbia, which is like 99.9% Democrat. They tried to find an impartial jury, supposedly. The jury still had 3 Clinton donors on the jury. There were people on the jury who, on record, donated to Hillary Clinton, let alone voted for her. We know 100% of the jury voted for Hillary Clinton because it's in the District of Columbia. But 3 of them actually donated to her. They didn't even get all the Clinton donors off. There was another person on the jury whose kid went to school with Sussman's kid. So we knew from day one, as soon as we knew that the trial was going to be in D.C., that Sussman was going to get his Sussy acquittal. And he's probably out celebrating right now at one of those Sussy house parties in the basement of, Comet Ping Pong or something, laughing at all those MAGA boomers who trusted the plan. Well, guess what? The plan has been carried out. This is the result. This is the end point. This was the goal of the plan that the Q boomers trusted. Now, looking at the case itself, I mean, it was pretty cut and dry. He is guilty as charged, just sort of from a common sense perspective. I'll go over that briefly. What he's charged with is lying to the FBI, because he went to the FBI and he said, hey, I'm a concerned citizen, and I'm really worried. I heard that this Trump guy has been colluding with Russia, and I think you guys need to look into that. That was the gist of it. There was more detail than that. It was specific allegations against Trump and evidence or something like that. It was all BS, as we know now. And as Robbie Mook told us, that was all Hillary's idea, according to Robbie Mook. And Sussman, in his sussy way, went to the FBI, said, hey, I have nothing to do with any political campaign. I just want you guys to know that I'm worried about this, and you should look into it. And the FBI said, oh, okay, sure, we understand, Mr. Concerned Citizen Perkins Coy lawyer. Now, they knew that Sussman, a lawyer for Perkins Coy, coming to tell the FBI about something wrong that a Republican presidential candidate might be doing, they know that he's not doing that in his private capacity. Perkins Coy is a Democrat law firm, and so obviously he was doing it. He was there on behalf of either Hillary herself or somebody within the Democratic Party trying to win the presidential election. So these guys at the FBI, they understand that. They're not idiots. They know, they have an IQ above 70. They might not have an IQ above 90, but they have an IQ above 70. They can understand, okay, Perkins Coy lawyer wants to tell us bad things about Donald Trump. Okay. Well, that'd be all well and good, and they could all, if they wanted to, they could all say, oh, okay, well, we're just going to, plead ignorance and go, oh, no, Sussman said, no, I was totally there on my own, and the FBI could say, oh, we totally thought he was there on his own. Well, the problem is he billed Hillary for the time that he spent talking to the FBI. Because he decided to bill her at his hourly rate. And there's no way around that. You're not there as a private citizen if you're billing a client for it. That's by definition, you're working. So it was open and shut, cut and dry. We all know that. But you still should have known that he was going to be acquitted, because jurors are not going to convict someone of, committing a process crime when they think that, what the person did was basically okay and a good thing. And in fact, good and patriotic. Why would they convict him? So obviously a Democrat jury who likes the whole Russiagate thing because it helped them and it helped stifle a president that they didn't like, they're going to acquit. And I support, in principle, the idea of doing that. I think jury nullification is a good thing, because obviously prosecutors select who they prosecute. They prosecute certain people. They don't, they have their own form of nullification, and that is they don't charge every single person who they possibly could charge with a crime. They only charge certain people, and they charge them with certain crimes. And so the jury can say, you know what, no, we don't want you to prosecute them for that. We don't think they should be found guilty for that or punished for what they did. And so we're just going to say that they're not guilty. And that, of course, is what the jury did here. Now, what pissed me off was I saw a report that the jury foreman came out and said, oh, yeah, we considered all the evidence, and we just thought that the government, meaning Durham, they just didn't make a very good case. And, I didn't think that the evidence stacked up in their favor. I mean, that is total bullshit. Stop it. I mean, it's beyond insulting. I would respect you if you said, yeah, we know that he lied to the FBI, but we think that's a BS crime, and we agree with what he did. What he did was good for the country, and so we're not going to put him in prison for that. That would have been the correct thing to say, and I would have respected them. And, Durham knew what he was doing. He knew that this was not going to go anywhere. Durham's going to walk out of there and go, oh, shucks, I tried my best. But he did his job. He put up a fake fight. It was a Potemkin investigation. And, he was going to get his, he was going to go in and he was going to hunt, for a wrongdoer, and he was going to get a scalp. And he just couldn't quite do it because the evidence just wasn't quite there, we're told. So yeah, you were worried about, the Russiagate thing being a hoax that was orchestrated by the Clinton campaign and deep state folks. Okay, yeah, we looked into it, and turns out there just wasn't that much evidence of it, so you can all go back to, living your normal life and not worrying about this. That's how these judicial cover-ups work. So I'm not one of these people who constantly likes to go back and relitigate and defend, like, the Trump administration, because what's the word? Critical of Trump. The whole time he was in office, he was doing things wrong all the time, and I thought it was important to criticize what he was doing wrong. And I did praise him when I thought he got stuff right, but I'm not going to go back and constantly try and defend him. But this is bigger than Trump. This isn't about defending Trump. This is instructive because in understanding how the government covers things up like this. This whole thing was a part. It's an elaborate way of covering things up because it's bringing it out in the open and saying, okay, we acknowledge that this, potential that the government did this potentially wrong thing, that the regime, made a boo-boo. So we're going to look into it, and ultimately, we're going to do an internal investigation and discover that we did nothing wrong. That's what Durham is. Durham is internal affairs at the police department. Like, by definition, he's the guy in the Justice Department who's brought in as a special prosecutor, when it's seen that other people in the Justice Department have a conflict of interest. Well, how is Durham any different? He's not. Like, everyone knows internal affairs at the police department they're not objective. They're still going to lean in favor of their buddies. They're still cops. So with that said, I wish you all a very sussy evening. And I will see all you sussy bros and sisses and sussy gals back here tomorrow.